Okay, now in the article below, I discuss investment options for Canadian expats. Now I'm going to summarize this and say, really, you have three main options. You have option one, which is to invest in the country where you're resident. So, for example, if you're living in the US, invest in the US. If you live in the UK, invest in UK shares or with a UK broker or UK property and so on. Option two is invest with a broker, or indeed, if you want to buy property back in Canada. Option three is a third country. In other words, an expat focused account, which is maybe focused on another country, whether that's Luxembourg or another country. Now, I'm going to just summarize my advice here, although this shouldn't be considered tax advice, of course. Now, the first option, which is to invest in a country where you live in, it only tends to make sense in certain situations. If you're living in the United States of America, for tax reasons, usually it does make sense to actually go with a broker in the United States. And the US tax authorities make it very difficult for American residents, regardless of whether you're an expat or an American, to invest productively overseas. And besides, if you tell an overseas broker, regardless of whether you're telling a Canadian broker, UK broker, or whatever, that you live in America, there's much less chance you'll even be accepted in the first place. So I would say this option does make sense if you're living in America for those reasons. But if you're, say, living in Dubai, UK, or wherever, often it doesn't make sense because you're only going to be in these countries for maybe a few years. So unless that option is very portable and is suitable for expats, what are you going to do? If you have a 25-year expat career, are you going to change your brokerage account every time you move, have 7 or 8 different brokerage accounts? Ideally, what you need is an expat focused brokerage account which moves around with you whenever you move, and usually that is in a third country which is not in your country of residence or your country of citizenship. You can invest also in Canada. However, just like many other countries, it's not particularly tax advantageous. So, for example, if you want to invest in real estate in Canada as a non-Canadian resident, even if you are originally from Canada and you're just an expat, it's not very tax advantageous at all. So I would say for the majority of people, having an expat account which is in a third country makes sense, but maybe the United States of America, if you're living there, is an exception.